Welcome to Section 2 or Part 2 of Central Carolina Community College's English Placement Test Review session. This section of the review will cover sentence structure. And again, I'd like to remind the viewers that this portion of the test is comprised of 20 multiple choice questions, each of which have one correct answer, and the test is not timed, so you can take as much time as you need. It's also important for you to note that common sense and logic are big things that need to be used when taking this test, because students very often get tripped up about being tested on something that we do all day, every day, which is speak and communicate, whether it's written or whether it's out loud. So there's several subjects that this test is going to quiz you on, and the first thing is going to be your ability to discern subject-verb agreement. Okay. Everyone knows that a sentence rather, has a subject and a verb, and it conveys a complete thought. So if you're writing about a singular subject, that verb needs to match the subject. Similarly, if you're writing about a plural subject, that verb needs to match the plural subject. And this can be kind of tricky in English because verbs are conjugated or put together in different ways. A good example of this is the verb walk. I, a singular subject, I walk. You walk. He, she, he walks with an S on the end. She walks to the store. We walk, that's plural. They walk, also plural. So interestingly enough, not all verbs with an S on the end are considered plural. Some of them are singular. It all depends on what kind of verb it is. If you're not sure, you can Google verbs and check for their conjugation. C-O-N-J-U-N-G-A-T-I-O-N. Anyhow, so there's some examples here of, a singular verb would be a car or the young boy. A plural subject might be badly written hospital signs or announcers. So some simple examples to drive the point home. And again, this all goes back to knowing how these verbs are conjugated. The girl reads mystery stories. The girl read mystery stories or the girl reads mystery stories. Obviously, reads is the one that fits. The police officers carry clubs, not the police officers carries clubs. It doesn't even sound right when you say it out loud. Everyone in our company planned to go. No, everyone in our company plans to go. The subject there is everyone. That's more than one person. That's plural. And finally, here is the announcers for the charity, or here are the announcers for the charity. The correct answer here is are, because we're talking about multiple announcers. So that's plural, so the plural of the verb is are. The second thing you're going to be tested on is your ability to use modifiers. Don't be afraid. Modifier is just a big scary word for descriptive words and phrases. Basically, these are words that describe or clarify or explain parts of a sentence. We refer to these commonly as adjectives and adverbs. Adjectives are used to modify or describe or explain nouns. So the example here is that she gave the swing a gentle push. Adjectives will answer the question, what? Right? She gave the swing a gentle push. What kind of push did she give the swing? Gentle. That's how you know that that word is an adjective. Adverbs will modify verbs, sometimes adjectives, and sometimes other adverbs. Adverbs answer the how question. She pushed the swing gently. How did she push the swing? Gently. That's how you know that gently is an adverb. And do not be mistaken, not all adverbs end with an ly. That's usually a good indicator that it's an adverb, but it's not always the case. So use the what and the how questions to determine which one is which. So here's an example of what a question might look like that kind of tests your knowledge about modifiers. They're asking you to select the best version of the underlined part of the sentence. That means the underlined part of the sentence could potentially change, but everything else is going to stay the same. So what you want to do here is you want to read all the way through the sentence with each possible option. I'm not going to do that here, but you can pause the video and check it out for yourself and then play the video when you're ready to see what the correct answer is. I will move forward very quickly in revealing the answers. So this is your chance to pause and try to figure this out for yourself. The correct answer here is A. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this sentence. And the reason for that is we've started the sentence with this phrase hanging sideways, right? We kind of get the notion that something is hanging sideways, but we don't know what it is. Whenever you start off with descriptive words like this, and then there's a comma, the very next thing that comes has to be what is being modified. So hanging sideways is the modifier, and it is modifying the word, the picture, right? So we could rearrange this sentence and say, the picture looked as if it would fall off the wall because it was hanging sideways. And it makes the same sense. Answer B is out because the picture was hanging sideways, looked as if it would fall off the wall. Now you have a comma in an odd place, which we'll get to in a minute. Answer C is incorrect because do you really think that you were hanging sideways and looking as if you would fall off the wall? That doesn't make too much sense. And finally, a lot of students choose answer D because it seems natural to pause that way. The picture hanging sideways looked as if it would fall off the wall. But remember, whenever we use commas, there has to be a full sentence on one side and not a full sentence on the other side. So by adding an extra comma in, we have the picture, which can't be a sentence by itself. We have hanging sideways, which can't be a sentence by itself, and then we have looked as if it would fall off the wall. So now we just have three sentences that aren't actually sentences all snug up together. Here's another example. Again, we're going to select the best version of the underlined words. In this case, it's the entire song. Driving home, Athena's favorite song was listened to by her. Who talks like that? Not me, certainly. So read through these answers, see what you figure out, and play the video when you're ready to receive the answer. The correct answer here is C. Driving home, Athena listened to her favorite song on the radio. We have the same type of scenario here where we have descriptive words starting the sentence, driving home. Who was driving home? Athena. She's the very next thing that comes in that sentence. So it's really important that you pay attention for little descriptors and clues like that. So driving home, Athena listened to her favorite song on the radio. Sounds like it makes sense to me. So far we've talked about subject-verb agreement and modifiers. The next thing that they're going to test you on is your ability to determine whether a sentence is actually a sentence or a fragment. It's important to note that a sentence fragment is a sentence that is not complete. It is also important to note that being a fragment has nothing to do with the number of words that are in the sentence. Some people see sentences with very few words and say, oh, that can't possibly be a sentence. And then some people see sentences that have tons of words and say, oh, well, there's so many words, it just has to be a sentence. But that's not always the case. A very short sentence with a complete idea is not a fragment. So what you have to remember in this situation is that there are three parts to a sentence. One, it has to have a subject, something that the sentence is talking about, right? It needs to have a verb, some type of action word or state of being. And thirdly, it needs to convey a complete thought. So if you read what appears to be a sentence and you find yourself looking for extra information, you find yourself saying and or okay, so what? Chances are it's probably not a sentence. Here's a few simple examples, and I'm going to fly right through these. Number one, I slept. That is a complete sentence. What did you do last night, Jim? I slept. I is the subject, slept is the verb. Do you feel like you need more information? I certainly don't. So I slept. Two little words and it's a whole sentence. Number two, since he came to New York. This one's a fragment. Since he came to New York, what? Right? Where's the rest of it? Number three is a sentence. Jim flew the plane. Number four is a fragment. Because my dog loves it. Because your dog loves what? Right? Where's the rest of it? He cried is a sentence. I take is a fragment. You take what? And 7, I hit the ball, that is also a sentence, as well as number 8, birds fly. Birds is the subject, fly is the verb, and it's the truth. Birds fly. The next thing we'll talk about is comma splices. And I'll tell you honestly, commas can be difficult. There's a lot of different rules associated with them, but as long as you remember the big things, you should be okay. Okay? A comma splice is just using a comma in a sentence in a way that it should not be used. It's like a comma error is basically what it means. And there's 4 general ways to correct this. The first of which, and usually is the right selection almost every time, is that you just have 2 sentences, right? And there's a comma in between them. So you just take the comma out, put in a period, make them 2 separate sentences. You could also use a coordinating conjunction, which we'll talk about in a moment. Or you could use a comma and a subordinating conjunction, which we'll also talk about in a minute, or you could use a semicolon. So here's some examples. All 3 of these sentences have comma splices in them. It's just a matter of where and how do we fix it. So what we want to do to test ourselves is to read everything up to the first comma and stop. Mr. Nguyen has sent his kids to Ivy League colleges. Could that be a sentence by itself? The answer, of course, is yes. Mr. Nguyen is the subject, sent is the verb, and we have a complete thought. He sent his kids to Ivy League colleges. Now let's read everything up to the next comma and stop. However. Could however be a sentence all by itself? Absolutely not. Now read everything after that second comma. He has sacrificed his health working day and night in a dusty bakery. Could that be a sentence by itself? Sure. So the way that we fix this is by taking out the first comma after colleges and putting in a period. Let's make that sentence its own sentence. Next, we have one of those relationship words like however. And since we're starting it with that word that can't be a sentence by itself, that second comma after the word however, it has to stay there. And then everything else that follows is the full sentence. We call that connecting the conjunction to the train. That word, however, can't stand out by itself, so we have to connect it to the rest of the sentence. We do that by putting the comma. Example number 2, the sun is high, put on some sunblock. Now, the first part of this, the sun is high, that could be a sentence all by itself. Put on some sunblock is not a sentence because we don't have a subject. Who are we telling to put on sunblock, right? The way that we fix this is by adding in the word so. So is a conjunction. The sun is high, so put on some sunblock. And then the third sentence, I went to the store, I saw a man standing on the corner. Both of these items on either side of the comma can be sentences all by themselves. And both of these things just happened. So the best way to correct this is to take that comma out and to put in the word and. I went to the store and I saw a man standing on the corner. That fixes all the problems. Moving on to conjunctions. Conjunctions are words that are used to join sentences or ideas together. There are 2 kinds. Coordinating conjunctions are used to join closely related sentences that are equal in importance. And there are only 7, so I encourage you to commit these 7 to memory. For, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so. And if you look at the first letter of each of the words and put them together, it spells out fanboys. That's a good way to try to commit that to memory, a nice little mnemonic device. We ask that you commit these 7 to memory because all the other descriptive words are all subordinating conjunctions, which we'll get to in a moment. So here's an example. We had to change our plans. We could not take our cruise until the end of the month. So both of these sentences are equal in importance, right? We don't know which one has a bearing on the other. We just know that these 2 things happened. So we're going to rewrite this and say, we could not take our cruise until the end of the And the correct answer is B. We could not take our cruise until the end of the month, so we had to change our plans, right? So is one of those coordinating conjunctions. Neither part of these ideas are more important than the other. They're just two things that happened at the same time. If we go with answer A, the word because is a subordinating conjunction, and it kind of tells us that there's a different type of relationship going on here. They're kind of saying they had to change their plans, right? And it was because they couldn't take their cruise until the end of the month. We don't know that for sure. These are just two things that happened, so we can't make that determination. Answer C is out because all it's done is created a comma splice. They've taken out the period between the two sentences and put a comma in, and that never solves anything. And finally, answer D is incorrect because the word then also indicates a different type of relationship other than equal. It indicates that something happened first and then the changing of the plans came after that. But we don't know for sure which happened happened when. So the only logical answer is B. Aside from coordinating conjunctions, there's also subordinating conjunctions. And while coordinating conjunctions are used to join sentences, ideas between sentences, or relationships between sentences, subordinating conjunctions show closely related ideas within one sentence, okay? So what this means is that we put more emphasis on one point more than another. Another way that you can remember this is think about the beginning of the word subordination. It reminds me of the word subordinate, which in terms of work is someone who is lower ranking than you. So if you know John was the boss, everybody else would be his subordinates, which means that John is more important, seemingly, of course, than the rest of the people that work below him. And that's a good way to think about this in terms of how these words work. Subordinating conjunctions will make a sentence incomplete, right? So they depend on a complete sentence to finish the idea. This is where the comma comes in a lot, okay? But what you need to remember here is that subordinating conjunctions show relationships between ideas within a sentence, not between sentences like coordinating conjunctions do. So we go back to these types of relationships and the conjunctions that go along with them. You could have a time relationship, right? When, whenever, while, first, second, third, next, then. All of these words are subordinating conjunctions. And so you can see how it's easier to remember 7 coordinating conjunctions and know that everything else is subordinating. Reason or cause, relationships, purpose, I wanted to do this so that I could do this. A condition, if you eat all your dinner, then you can have dessert. A contrast, I like to wear red even though green is my favorite color. Location, where or wherever, and a choice. Would you rather have this over that? So what you want to be doing is thinking about the types of relationships that these ideas can have, and then make sure that the appropriate conjunction is being used. So here's an example here. Although the maiden waited patiently, the handsome prince galloped away on his horse. You need to do the comma test here first. Read everything up to the comma and stop. Although the maiden waited patiently. That is not a complete sentence. Okay. Now everything after the comma, the handsome prince galloped away on his horse. That is a complete sentence. So we already know, just from doing that comma test, that the first part of the sentence has that conjunction in it, right? Because we said that the conjunction makes the sentence incomplete, and we have to connect it to a full sentence. So of the 5 words in the first part of the sentence, which word is the conjunction? Is it the maiden? Is it waited? Is it patiently? No, it's the word although, right? It's providing us with some type of relationship, okay? And so now that we understand how the sentence is put together, now we can rewrite it. So we're going to rewrite it, and we're going to start with, although the handsome prince, looks awfully similar to the way it started before. So let's see. The actual correct answer here is A. Although the handsome prince galloped away on his horse, the maiden waited patiently until he returned. Do the test again. Read everything up to the comma and stop. Is it a complete sentence? No, it is not. Is everything after the comma a complete sentence? Yes, it is. That's how you know that it's correct. And there's no extra information and we haven't changed anything in the sentence. Answer B is incorrect because it uses both a subordinating conjunction, although, and a coordinating conjunction, the word and. How can a sentence say that one part is more important over the other and then that they're both equally important at the same time? That's what happens when we use conjunctions, multiple conjunctions. We create confusion. So answer B is out. Answer C is out because they changed the verb galloped to galloping. Why would they change that? All we're doing is rearranging the words, okay? And finally, answer D is incorrect because if you do the comma test, now by adding a second comma, you have two comma splices. You have two sentence fragments attached to a sentence. You can't do that. You can only attach one fragment to a sentence. Here's another example. When a student is learning how to write a paper, the textbook can be a valuable resource. So if we do the comma test, it reveals that the first part of the sentence is the subordination part, and the second part is an actual complete sentence. It also is revealed that the subordinating conjunction that we're looking for is the word when. This is a time relationship. So now we're rewriting the sentence and we're starting it in an entirely different way. The textbook is a valuable resource, and the correct answer is D, when a student is learning how to write a paper. Okay, answer A is out because there's no mention of you in the first sentence. They've changed the words, and so we don't want to do that. Answer B is out because we have no conjunction at all. The textbook is a valuable resource learning how to write a paper, but we don't know how those two ideas are related to each other because there's no conjunction at all. Answer C is out, although many students select this answer for a very simple reason. In answer C, they refer to students, multiple students, but in the original sentence, it was just one student. That's the main reason why this answer isn't correct. The other reason is, if you've noticed, when we rewrote this sentence and did not start it with the conjunction, the comma seemed to disappear. The textbook is a valuable resource when a student is learning how to write a paper. When you use the conjunction, a subordinating conjunction, in the middle of a sentence, very rarely will you need a comma. The only time you need the comma to connect it to the rest of the sentence is when you start the sentence with the conjunction. Okay? Additionally, you'll be tested on your knowledge of semicolons, and it's important to know that semicolons operate more like a period than they do like a comma. A semicolon is the character that has a dot on the top and a comma on the bottom. These are used to separate complete sentences. That is the first thing you need to remember. So if you look at an example and what's on either side of that semicolon can't stand as a sentence by itself, you already know that you're using it incorrectly. The sentences also have to be very closely related. They need to be talking about the same idea. Okay, and more often than not, a semicolon will replace the words that connect the sentences. So let's look at an example so that you understand. The first writing of the sentence says, Susie ate the apple instead of the piece of cake because she wanted to lose weight. So that word because tells us the type of relationship, right? There's a reason that she ate that apple, and it was because she wanted to lose weight. When we use a semicolon, the sentence changes, and it reads, Susie ate the apple instead of the piece of cake. She wanted to lose weight. So each set of words on either side of this semicolon is a full sentence. And more importantly, there's nothing that's been taken away from the meaning of this sentence. That semicolon has kind of taken the place of the word because. We kind of get an implication, or it's kind of stated indirectly that that's the relationship between these two things. We never want to use semicolons for sentences that are not related to each other. Again, the subject matter has to be extremely close in this case. Parallelisms are something that are used mainly when you're writing, okay? And we use these things to make all the ideas in a sentence equal in structure, or parallel to each other, where they run by side, they're all similar. In other words, we want to use the same grammatical form for each idea, okay? Parallel sentences generally are just much easier and smoother to read, and it doesn't leave room for confusion among your readers. So let's look at the example. Paul washed the car, groomed the dog, and was mowing the lawn all in the same day. So it seems like by using the word and, that these are three things that happened. Neither one is more important than the other, but oddly enough, they changed the way that the verb was written on the last item on the list. We have washed the car, groomed the dog, and was mowing the lawn. Why did they change that? Okay, that's what brings up questions when we aren't consistent in listing things, and that's very often where you see parallelisms is in a list. So if we rewrote the sentence to make it parallel, it would say Paul washed the car, groomed the dog, and mowed the lawn all in the same day. And it just sounds better. Washed the car, groomed the dog, mowed the lawn. It even almost has a little bit of a rhythm to it. It creates clarity and makes it just much easier on the eyes and much easier to comprehend. We also want to pay attention to when you're making comparisons in your writing. Comparisons have to be logical and they have to be complete. If you ever notice when you're having a conversation with someone, the context and the body language, it kind of fills in the gaps that a comparison written on paper might be lacking. And so you have to be clear and logical and accurate, okay? The example here, Jim appreciates Monday Night Football more than his wife. There's two ways that this sentence can be read. Either Jim appreciates Monday Night Football more than his wife appreciates Monday Night Football, or Jim appreciates Monday Night Football more than he appreciates his wife. Do you see the distinction here? That if a room full of students read this sentence, half of them may read it one way and half of them may read it the other way. That's why it's important to be very clear and to leave no room for confusion. So whatever it is that you wanted to say, you should come out and say it. Jim appreciates Monday Night Football more than he appreciates his wife. And then it is very clear that Monday Night Football is much more important to him than his spouse. The same idea goes for the second example. Does Barbara like ice cream more than I like ice cream? Or does Barbara like ice cream more than she likes me? Whichever one you mean to say it. And use those clear, logical, accurate words so that there's no confusion. You also want to avoid wordy phrasing, okay? That helps create clarity. We often see this in student writing, and we call it fluff. Students often haven't reached a page limit or a page requirement for a paper, so they go in and kind of drag things out and put in extra words to fill the paper up, and all it really does is cause confusion. So you want to stay away from wordy phrases. A good example of this is if you go to see a speech and someone on the stage says, "At this point in time, I would like to now introduce the speaker." That's a whole lot of words for just saying, "Now, here's the speaker." It's much clearer, it's much more direct, and there's no room for confusion about what's happening. Similarly, you want to avoid redundant phrases. Saying something like, "She was very smart and intelligent." Well, smart and intelligent mean the same thing, so you really only need to use one of those words, okay? And that's what we mean by avoiding wordy phrasing. It's all about clarity, being clear and direct and concise. Finally, verb tense sequence. This seems pretty commonplace, but you would be surprised how often students forget to look for these simple things to help them, okay? Two simultaneous actions that shows present tense, something that's going on right now. Mike never works, and works is that indicator, late, because he values time with his family. Works and values, those are both present tense verbs. These are things that happen on a daily basis right now. An earlier action, Dana currently believes that Marion broke her new watch. We know that the watch has already been broken because of the way the verb broke is written. Dana believes, she currently believes that this thing that happened in the past is because of Marion. And finally, future actions. Whenever you see words like hopes or dreams or believes, these usually indicate future actions, but there's also other words in this sentence. Words like tomorrow and his parents will be ready. They're not ready now. They weren't ready in the past. They will be ready. It's not something that's happened yet. So use your common sense and look for these verbs to make sure that you have a complete understanding of a sentence before you try to pass judgment on it in terms of the test.